So we have a surge in the evictions in Maricopa County and Arizona in general. What does that mean? Is this data for real? Well, stick around to the end of the video and we're going to compare some of the different data sets that are out there. 1 minute the news reports one thing and another minute they report another. Does the COVID bubble have anything to do with this? Let's take a look. So gathering the correct information is always difficult. The one thing that people forget to realize is COVID was a big deal and it really changed the real estate data for good, at least for a couple year span. Right now, all the videos that are out there on YouTube are talking about the crash, and they're based on the fact that they're comparing prices when we had the lowest interest rates in history and we had high demand for real estate because of it. And then after the COVID lockdown, we had people moving from one state to another with remote work. If we were to throw out all that data and take away the last 3 years, we would probably have a better indication of what's really going on in the real estate market. Everybody seems to be looking out there to see if we're having a crash. Here's a good example of what I'm talking about. Arizona family, AZ family, in June, rent prices to drop year over year for the first time since 2020. Then 4 days ago, Metro Phoenix rent prices up 30% in 3 years. Another one, new report shows Phoenix rent prices up 5.6% since last year. I mean, look at the differences right here. And depending on which article you click on, you're going to get different information. Now, have rents gone up in the greater Phoenix area? Yes, they have. And what's causing that? A couple things. Number one is demand. But when we go through this article here that got me on this topic this morning, surge in Maricopa County evictions continues with no signs of slowing. So one thing that people forget about is we had a moratorium on evictions and it ended in the middle of 2021. So that's definitely going to affect the data now. Why? Because a lot of landlords who couldn't evict tenants did evictions and they continue to do evictions since that period. Many of them locked in their tenants for an additional year without raising rents because they didn't want to lose the tenant. The problem that happens is government involvement in the market cycles that are taking place become a problem. Now they're saying right here more than 7,600 evictions were filed in August, a figure beaten only by September of 2005. The one thing that they're not talking about in this article is the fact that we have more rentals on the market, meaning more landlords than ever before. When all the hedge funds started coming in and buying these properties up in Phoenix and turning them into rentals, our overall rental pool went up substantially. So if you look at the number of rentals that we had in 2018 versus the number that are available now, not available for rent, but just available in the marketplace as rental properties, we have substantially more. So of course that number is going to be off. It says right here, Maricopa County's seen month after month now of record-breaking evictions, with July seeing the most since 2008, even as Arizona suffered through record-breaking heat. I don't know what record-breaking heat has to do with evictions. It doesn't really affect the employment and stuff in Phoenix. And here's a chart that that I can show you. So let me go back to 2019 on this chart. You can see where the evictions were, and they kind of peaked out in 2019 around 6,200. Now, again, remember, since 2019, we probably have 20 or 30% more rentals that are available in the marketplace in Phoenix than we ever had before. So now we're going to go into 2022 and take a look at them. Again, we had 6,600. Right now, we're not way outside of that. Now, if we go back to 2020, when interest rates were low and we had an eviction moratorium, look at how low they were, 1,600, 1,700. These are some of the numbers that get skewed because of COVID and the eviction moratorium that people compare things to. Right now, for the crash in the real estate market, they're comparing everything down from the peak in 2022. And a lot of people on the rentals are comparing to the lows that we had in 2020. They throw out the real market data that was back around 2019 before COVID hit, before the moratoriums, before all these strange things that were happening. So now government steps in and says, we have a responsibility as a society to take a stance for humanity, and everything's going to fall apart. So everything's going to fall apart, and then government wants to step in and make changes to the way things are played out. The one thing that really bothers me, and right here it even says, not all eviction files lead to a tenant being thrown out. 1 in 3 will be dismissed. Since 2000, the average number of eviction filings for the month of August is around 6274. This year, we saw a 22% increase up to 7693. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. Number one, people have moved or they're moving and they just decide to let the landlord evict them rather than pay the rent. A lot of people choose to do that option, believe it or not. They don't care about their credit score. They just let an eviction happen and they don't solve it. Number two, you have the landlords. Yes, rents have increased, and a lot of landlords want to increase the rents, or they want to get rid of bad tenants. Bad tenants were forced to stay over 20, when we had the moratorium on during COVID, and landlords want to get rid of those tenants. I've been a landlord. I've owned multiple rental properties, and I can just tell you that not every land or every tenant is the same. Some pay timely, some don't. Some take advantage of landlords. Some landlords, of course, take advantage of tenants. Another thing we've seen in the valley is a lot more of these landlords are professional property managers versus what used to be a lot more mom and pop managers. Mom and pop managers were a lot more lenient with their tenants, and oftentimes they came to an agreement with their tenants before they went to the eviction process. I used to do all my leases on a month-to-month lease. That allowed the tenant to leave if they needed to leave, and that allowed me as a landlord to evict them without having to go to eviction court by just telling them we decide we don't want to extend your lease at this time. Now, in California, landlords this week held a party to be celebrating the ability to evict people again. Because again, every state is different. And California, who always seems to have these crazy laws, put out there that people couldn't be evicted. And a lot of these landlords don't want to evict people. So now, some of the media and the politicians are saying we need to have rent controls in Arizona. And right now we don't have those. Our system has worked out really well here. And again, while we're coming out of a crisis such as COVID, they try to change all the rules all of a sudden. And all these rules are coming from cities like California, Seattle, or states like California, Washington, and Oregon that lead over to Arizona. And a lot of these landlord tenant laws are crazy. What is the incentive for anybody to have a rental property if the government's going to tell you you can't collect rents? That works for the big hedge funds, but that doesn't help the mom and pops. Of course, I'm not for evicting people if they run through trouble, but they have to find their own way in life. Nothing is given away for free. So here's another one. Democrats at the state capitol and tenant advocates pushed a series of bills during recently completed legislation that would have scrapped Arizona's ban and implemented a cap on rental increases across the state. Here we go again. They want to step in and make government changes to a system that already works. Another thing that's affecting the market again are all these big Wall Street type firms that are owning rental property. Right here, this top on Arizona Big Media says Phoenix, #1 in the nation of build to rent houses. Remember, as Arizona grows with rental inventory, meaning more homes for rent or more homes that could be rented in the greater Phoenix area, you will always have more evictions. If you drew a chart, took out COVID completely, added the number of homes that were added to rental inventory in the greater Phoenix area, the number of residents that have moved to the greater Phoenix area, and then evictions, I bet you those lines would be pretty much traditionally following the norms of history. We just have to get over these COVID years and get back to a normal market so that we can really compare data apples to apples. So anyway, I just wanted to do this video. There's been a lot in the news. Everybody's waiting for a real estate crash. Is it going to come? Is it not going to come? Is evictions a sign that the bubble's going to break? Well, certainly with these high interest rates, things have changed. Nobody knows what the future is. We just look at the data every single month and try to help our clients guide through it. Is it a good time to buy right now? Not for everyone. But if people would stop looking at their homes as like they do their stocks for short-term gains or losses and look at it as a place to live and raise a family, well, that's a different story. Thanks a lot for tuning in today. Take a look at some of our other videos. Have a great day.